Welcome back to Foreign Correspondents. I'm Seoul and I'm joined by our foreign journalist. Welcome to the program.
Good to be back.
Now, I know that all three of you extensively cover inter-Korean relations. So what was the focus of your reporting this week?
Well, obviously, I think I can speak for everyone here today. The agreement from the U.S. that President Donald Trump would meet with the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, at some time by May.
By May.
I think that really took everyone by surprise.
And he expressed his eagerness to meet President Trump as soon as possible. President Trump appreciated the briefing and said he would meet Kim Jong-un by May to achieve permanent denuclearization.
Certainly a couple of weeks ago, we never thought that there would be an agreement for the leaders of the United States and North Korea to have any type of direct face-to-face meeting.
I was so surprised in Friday morning hearing that news. Yeah.
Well, there's such a rapid escalation of moves toward talks, reconciliation, dialogue, and so forth.
Ever since the delegation went to Pyongyang.
Right. Ever since the opening of the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, we've had one sort of surprise story after another. And luckily, all these stories have been positive stories. So let's see if the positive trend continues into May when President Trump says that he's ready to meet Kim Jong-un.
Exactly, Don. Usually we get woken up with calls for responses about missile or nuclear tests. This time it's about a potential summit between world leaders.
That's right. So as our panelists have just mentioned, last week President Moon Jae-in sent his special envoy to North Korea, and this has led to two potential summits being planned for the near future. So this week on Foreign Correspondents, we'll discuss Seoul's delegation to Pyongyang and its outcome. President Moon Jae-in's special envoys to North Korea embarked on their journey across the border on March 5th. This marks the first time South Korea has dispatched a special envoy to the north in almost 11 years, since August 2007.
한반도의 비핵화와 진정하고 항구적인 평화를 만들어 나가고자 하는 대통령의 확고한 뜻과 의지를 분명히 전달하겠습니다.
3 hours after their arrival in Pyongyang, the special envoys attended a luncheon and met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The special envoys received a full VIP treatment from North Korea, with the luncheon taking place at the main hall of the Korean Workers' Party, where no South Korean official had ever stepped foot in. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un spent 4 hours at the luncheon meeting, accompanied by his wife Lee Seol-ju in an unusual and extraordinary gesture. According to the special envoys, they had reached an agreement with Pyongyang to hold an inter-Korean summit meeting.
남과 북은 4월 말 판문점 평화의 집에서 제3차 남북 정상회담을 개최하기로 하였으며
The delegation also made other groundbreaking achievements, agreeing to install an emergency hotline between the leaders of the two Koreas, while gaining affirmation on North Korea's willingness to denuclearize. The special envoy's visit to North Korea could be a watershed moment that changes the future of the Korean peninsula. So in this week's edition of Foreign Correspondents, we sit down with our panel of foreign journalists to discuss these latest achievements, as well as some of the future challenges that still remain. So Koichi, what's your overall assessment of the presidential delegation?
Well, so far it's really good, more than we expected. But what's bothering me is, there is no direct reference from North Korean official media. We're listening everything from South Korean side, so that's a bit bothering. But I expect, just it is a really good outcome.
Right. So far, all the articles have been according to South Korea because, as you mentioned, North Korea hasn't given any official words. Frank, did anything in particular stand out for you during the visit?
What stood out for me was that, you know, the outcome. Going into this, I didn't even expect them certainly to meet Kim Jong-un. When they left South Korea for this, there was no definitive plan or schedule to meet the leader of North Korea. And having such a long meeting with him, 4 hours, including a banquet and a separate meeting and some talks, some extensive negotiations, I think that was really surprising. The biggest surprise out of that meeting. And then, of course, you know, that they had secured a summit.
Mm-hmm. Now, the 10-member delegation, it included not one but two cabinet-level officials, and many of the Korean media outlets are reading this as a sign of President Moon Jae-in's willingness or his determination to have a successful negotiation. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, and also Jong-yeon and So-hoon, the head of NIS, these two people has been picturing a grand design of Moon administration's foreign policy and a policy towards North Korea. So they are the key person.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
Well, I think that the fact that he sent two such interesting emissaries was highly significant. It's interesting that one of them is the director of the National Intelligence Service. There's been criticism of that. Some people have said, well, he's supposed to be worrying about what's going on in North Korea, not engaging in negotiations. On the other hand, as a NIS director, he may have had some good advice and he may have picked up intelligence insights, which are extremely valuable. So the makeup of the delegation was extremely interesting, and the big surprise was the optics, as Frank has pointed out. Seeing Kim Jong-un greeting these people, having dinner with them, receiving them as the genial host, along with his wife and younger sister. They were there too.
Yeah.
So it was really a very colorful, dramatic occasion, which we hope portends still more colorful and dramatic meetings between the president of South Korea, between President Moon and Kim Jong-un, and then between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. We hope that they're equally dramatic, equally colorful, and equally positive.
Okay. Now, of the 6 points of agreement reached during the visit, which one is the most significant in your opinion?
I think certainly North Korea's willingness to discuss denuclearization. That has been the goal of the South Korean and U.S. governments, to get North Korea to verifiably and comprehensively denuclearize. They've said that North Korea has to make a commitment toward negotiations on denuclearization before Washington would engage in talks with North Korea. They appear to have done that. And they've gone further than that in terms of freezing their nuclear and missile testing while these negotiations play out. And that is a unilateral commitment. Again, this goes beyond really what could have been expected as a positive outcome to a much more positive outcome of the 6 points that you mentioned.
Right. Prior to this visit, there has been a hiatus. There hasn't been a delegation sent from Seoul to Pyongyang for just a bit over a decade. So what do you think is the main reason for the hiatus during the Lee Myung-bak and Park Geun-hye era?
Well, it's hard to say because there are many things happened during these 11 years. There are at least 4 or 5 times nuclear test, and Chairman Kim Jong-il died in late 2011. And also there were many provocative action from North Korean side, including sinking of Cheonan. So these events are all affected. And also President Lee Myung-bak also sent a secret envoys to Beijing, and they had a secret talks in 2011. And Lee Myung-bak also tried to have a South and North summit, which was failed. So it's hard to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, as I'm sure you're well aware, the media was somewhat kept in the dark during the delegation's visit. Their itinerary was classified and members of the press were not allowed to accompany the delegation. As journalists, do you see a problem with this at all?
Yes and no. They did, the reveal what had happened when they got back.
Once they got back.
Once they got back, there was a lot of photographic evidence, video, photographs and so forth, comments, a full briefing by Mr. Chung at the Blue House. So there was that much openness, which is considerably more openness, by the way, than we've seen from Pyongyang, from the North Korean side. But should the media have accompanied them? As a journalist, yes, I think the media should have accompanied them. I think it would have been good to have had the media with them and perhaps to have been briefed when they were in Pyongyang. I do have to say that I think that would have been good. But there will be those who said, no, we shouldn't have the media there. We should make sure that this is all taken care of without the media getting in the way or reporting rumors or getting ahead of the story and that kind of thing. There is that argument, but from a media point of view, I think the media probably should have been there.
And what about his sudden willingness to talk to the US and consider denuclearization? Do you think this is just another ploy, or do you think this is actually a fundamental shift in policy?
I think we're going to have to wait and find the devil in the details in terms of what North Korea means by security guarantees. If North Korea means U.S. pulling its troops and materials and THAAD and everything out of North Korea as a security guarantee along with the peace treaty, I think that's pretty much a non-starter for the U.S. They're not going to agree to that under any circumstances. And if that's North Korea's sort of play moving into this, it will be looked upon as somewhat insincere, I think, by the U.S. and the international community, South Korea and Japan. So we need to find the devil in the details in terms of what North Korea means by the security guarantees that would see them giving up their nuclear weapons and missiles and program.
One thing, I think that we're going to see these joint exercises before these summits. Yes. I don't think that President Moon is going to say, well, now we're moving into summits, so let's cancel these exercises. They're going to go through with those exercises, and the North Korean reaction will be interesting. By the way, I think also that the South Korean side has made clear to North Korea that, well, we have to go through with these exercises. We promised that we've agreed and they're going to happen.
Right, and Kim Jong-un has said that he understands that the drills must continue.
Right. I mean, I don't think he's been quite so understanding about sanctions, however. I don't think he's going to say, well, okay, the sanctions got to go on too. No, he's not going to say that. He's going to hope that the sanctions are removed or on the way to removal. By the way, one interesting footnote to all this, what about the Kaesong industrial complex and the Mount Kumgang tourist zone? Will they be talking about reopening them? I think they might. I think those will be on the table. And I, if I may hazard a prediction, which I probably should never do, I think sometime in the next year, let's say, one or two of either Kaesong or Kumgang or both of them will somehow be reopened.
I think that might be a good call later, after the summits, after there's been some movement toward denuclearization. We could see some changes there prior to perhaps the removal of any UN sanctions.
Right.
All right, as we've already touched upon, the inter-Korean relations not only affect the two countries, but their allies and neighboring countries as well. So how is the international community reacting to recent developments? Let's take a look. Inter-Korean relations are riding a big wave of changes following Kim Jong-un's New Year's address, leading up to Seoul's dispatch of a special delegation to North Korea. The United States has reacted with cautious optimism over the special envoy's visit to North Korea. Following the delegation's return from their visit to North Korea, US President Donald Trump took to Twitter and said the world is watching and waiting. He further added the US is ready to, quote, go hard in either direction, still maintaining a steady guard. On March 8th, the special envoys to North Korea visited the United States to report on their discussions and agreements to the Trump administration. Japan also reported on the special delegation's visit to Pyongyang with a cautious and guarded tone. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga and Foreign Minister Taro Kono asked for further details and clarification from South Korea regarding the discussions that took place between the special envoys and Pyongyang. They also emphasized that South Korea, the US, and Japan must continue to share information and that all parties must be consulted regarding the North Korean nuclear issue. Meanwhile, China welcomed the special envoy's visit and their achievements.
Foreign media outlets also provided comprehensive coverage of the special envoy's visit to the north as well as their achievements. The global media's reaction to these developments were mostly positive, with a heavy emphasis on North Korea's claim that it's willing to denuclearize. However, some critics have raised questions on whether North Korea can be trusted to carry out its promises. All eyes across the world are watching the developments on the Korean Peninsula and on whether the special envoy's visit to Pyongyang could be a stepping stone towards lasting peace.
Now, of course, it would depend on the specific newspaper or the news channel, but what would you say is the general tone of the media coverage in your country regarding the delegation's visit?
Basically, from Japanese side, well, most of the people welcome the consequence because it included the commitment, North Korean commitment to the denuclearization. But of course, we have some doubt because one biggest reason is it looks like everything about show, big show with summit, two summit, South and North summit and US-North Korea summit. And it looks like lacking time to have a consultation. But also, on the other hand, we are quite many journalists who covers North Korea and South Korea are excited because six-party talks, we all remember six-party talks. It was a very boring meeting, you know, go on back and forth. But meeting between President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un, it's not boring at all, so a bit excited.
Right. And what about the coverage in your country?
Well, I think the U.S. reaction is more or less the same as that in Japan and elsewhere in the West, in Europe too. I think that people are saying, well, this is exciting. Hey, maybe something might come of it at last. But I also think there's an undercurrent of skepticism. What is Kim Jong-un up to now? Is he going to try to delay doing anything and demanding that the U.S. withdraw all its troops or totally give up exercises, if not this year, then next year? There's also an issue of where they're going to have this summit. My theory, my guess, which could be totally wrong, is that they're going to have it at Panmunjom, because Panmunjom is a kind of a neutral area in which to have it. President Trump cannot go to Pyongyang, in my opinion. I think that there'd be too many security issues. Right. Secret Service would go nuts. They would want to send in hundreds of people, which the North Koreans would not want. So it's going to be very interesting to see where they're going to have it.
Yeah. Under what circumstances do you think the summit will be held?
Well, I think we have to first, you know, if we're talking about a summit, I think we are between Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. First, the summit between Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un has to take place, and there has to be a positive outcome of that summit. There's going to have to be further direct confirmation from North Korea that they are going to negotiate toward denuclearization, and perhaps even a greater commitment toward denuclearization before U.S. President Donald Trump will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Without that commitment, I don't see a Washington-Pyongyang summit taking place. A direct commitment from the horse's mouth, from the North Koreans.
Right. And coming back to South Korea is ruling in opposition parties. They've been at odds. They've had different views regarding the whole delegation's visit and its outcome. What do you think are the main points of disagreement between the two?
I think conservative people in South Korea still have a strong doubt on the North Korean will of denuclearization, because you know they talked about denuclearization many times in the past, but concrete action was actually just one or two. They blew up minor facility of the nuclear facility in 2008, and 1 year later they detonate another second nuclear test in 2009. So I think that's the biggest point between conservative and liberal.
Right. So there are some differences in views depending on the political party and depending on which country you are rooting for. But I guess one thing that we can safely assume is that all countries are united in wanting the North Korea to denuclearize, and you've touched upon this, but how do you rate the possibility that North Korea would actually voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons?
You know, I think really you'd have to be a tarot card reader to know exactly how far they're going to move toward that. There is, I think, even a little pushback right now in terms of their unilateral freeze on nuclear testing and missile testing, in that there is activity taking place, according to a website called 38 North, at the Yongbyon facility. So whether North Korea really is intending to denuclearize and how much of a security guarantee they're going to require to move down that road, I don't think we know that right now. I think Moon Jae-in has mentioned we're really only at the beginning.
Right.
There are gradations of denuclearization. I don't think they're going to give up the warheads that they've got. They're not going to give. I don't think they're going to close down the Yongbyon facility where they have a small reactor.
Right.
I don't think they're going to give up what they've got. I don't think they're going to shut down their nuclear program. They've gone very far with that, and I think they're going to keep their program there.
I think another question that we need to look at is how far is the U.S. and the international community going to need to go on denuclearization? Like, what is complete and verifiable denuclearization? They're going to have to send the IAEA back in. They're probably going to want to do that. They're probably going to want to visit facilities. Are they going to want absolute transparency and have officials be able to, and investigators be able to visit every, North Korean military base?
Yeah, so how thorough are they going to be in defining denuclearization?
Yeah, and I think that's another question to go together with the definition of denuclearization that we need to see take place over, rounds of negotiations.
And there's also going to be the question of highly enriched uranium. In addition to their plutonium reactor in Yongbyon, they have an HEU program as well.
They do.
And which was revealed in 2002. They denied it at first. Now in recent years they've been boasting about it. So again, we have to see how far this goes. But by suggesting a summit between the two leaders, between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, they're going far beyond the scope of those six-party talks, which dragged on forever and resulted in a couple of deals in 2007, which North Korea didn't abide by.
Right.
So those talks. People want to get away from those talks and move everything to a higher level. Which let's see what happens. But that's the whole point.
Right. Any final comments?
Well, I think again that we're just at the beginning of what could be and hopefully will be an extensive development of negotiations and talks between North Korea and the international community. And it marks definitely a shift in news coverage from the sensational beat of war drums to the sound of peacemaking.
Yeah, of olive branches.
There's one issue that we haven't mentioned. That is the question of human rights in North Korea. What's going to happen to these tens of thousands of people who are held in prison camps there for political offenses? We're not talking about people who are found guilty of petty thievery. And one would hope that they're going to discuss reopening Mount Kumgang. They had a terrible tragedy some years ago in which a woman was shot and killed by a North Korean guard while she was looking at the sunrise. And also the reopening of Kaesong industrial complex is going to be interesting too. I would hope that, I would think, although I don't know anything, but I would think that President Moon would want to raise these topics with Kim Jong-un, or if he doesn't personally raise them, then the people with him, his advisors and aides and so forth, would raise them with their counterparts in North Korea.
I'm going to have to disagree with Don on this. I think one of the problems that we saw with the six-party talks is that the other countries would pile on other issues that they wanted to talk about. In Japan, they wanted to get the issue of abducted Japanese people that were held in North Korea. They wanted that to be part of the issue. And also, the U.S. wanted human rights to be part of the discussion there. And then the force behind the focused goal of denuclearization was, muddled a little bit. And I think one of the things that could happen here is if it's just between the U.S. and North Korea and perhaps South Korea, that the conversation, the negotiations are narrowed, I think you have a better chance of success. I'm not saying that these aren't serious problems that need to be addressed in North Korea. I think that they definitely are. But one step at a time, get this more serious security issue solved, and then through engaging North Korea, bringing them into the international community, seek movement on greater democracy in North Korea.
Okay.
When it comes to this abductee issue, then if the nuclear talks between U.S. and North Korea goes on very well, then Japan can have a direct talks with North Korea on different abductee issues. So.
All right. After sending various delegations to each other, the two Koreas have reached a 6-point agreement for future reconciliation. And hopefully these agreements can pave the way for peace on the Korean Peninsula. All right, that's all the time we have today. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.